Hey, it's Angie, and welcome to More Like You. It is the first episode of 2026. And yes, I know it is the last week of February already. And that is why I want to talk to you today about the importance of looking back before moving forward. If you follow me on Instagram, you may have seen that on New Year's Day, I did a polar plunge. My husband and I went to a local pool club. It was about 50 degrees, so not freezing cold, but pretty cold. It was a blue skies kind of day. And it did help that it started not so early in the morning. I think it started around 10:30. I've never done a polar plunge. I've never jumped into cold water on New Year's Day. We live near the beach. Lots of people flock to the beach and do that. I have never really been interested in doing that until this year. For whatever reason, I felt very compelled to do it. And then when it was done, so I recorded it. Of course, I had to capture it on video. And then when I got home later that day, I made a little Instagram reel. I really love doing that. Sometimes in my mind, I see scenes from my life play out with music in the background. So I'm always making these little music videos in my mind. And I loved putting the image of all of us jumping in this cold water, getting right back out of the pool. And I believe the song I picked, I believe it's called Break My Stride. It's a song that I remember from my childhood back in the 80s. So it's like, nothing's going to break my stride. Nothing's going to slow me down. I got to keep moving. And I think even the caption was plunging into 2026. So I think all of that fit the imagery of the moment. But for me, that moment wasn't really fueled with let's go kind of energy. For me, it was just a symbol of my desire for this year to feel more awake, alive, present. I started thinking about what I wanted for 2026 probably last fall and really started thinking about it as the holiday season was coming to a close. When, there's all this societal pressure to think about resolutions or new year, new me. And every year I feel differently about how I want to approach the new year. This particular year, I looked at my life and I was thinking there's really nothing in my life that I want to add or subtract. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't things happening that you don't want to have to deal with. And there are things about life that we just have to do or face. But with the things that were relatively in the realm of my control, I was thinking there's really nothing I want to add or subtract. But I did want to feel integrated. I wanted to feel more integrated in my life. I wanted to feel like the things on my plate, the things I'm managing, juggling, responsible for, felt like it was part of the same whole rather than all of these things tugging at me, pulling me in a million different directions. So if I could name it, probably what I want for 2026 is more of a feeling than it is a specific goal. But I know that even to create a life that feels more integrated, that's not just something you can decide to do overnight. So I wanted to spend some time really reflecting on my life, kind of looking at everything on my plate and seeing adjustments I could make to maybe be less frantic. So I just knew I wanted to take some time to look at everything, to think about my life, to reflect on all of these things that would help me feel more integrated, how I could fine tune my life. I knew this would take a little bit of time. I wanted to set aside some time to look at everything and really figure out where I can make adjustments. And as I was looking at my calendar, thinking about how can I make some time to really reflect on this year I've just lived and the one ahead, it occurred to me to bring my family into the process. My oldest son is now a sophomore in college. My middle child, My second son is a junior in high school now. And my youngest, my daughter, is in the 8th grade. She is in her last year of middle school. My husband owns several media companies. He travels a lot for work. And it occurred to me to bring my family into something that I do privately, that I do on my own every year. I'm sure they have their own ways of thinking about the new year, maybe even setting some goals, but I felt compelled to invite them into this process. So I found some time on the calendar where everyone was available. It was New Year's Eve during the day before they went off and did their plans. I scheduled a time from 11 to 2, and I worried that they would really push back about that, but they said, okay. Partly because I said, I'll have lunch. I ordered some chicken tenders from Publix, which I know they love. And I just said, this will be fun. Just join me in this. And to my surprise, they said, okay. Everyone came down the stairs promptly at 11 a.m., ready to get going. So to prepare for this New Year's lunch retreat, I had gathered some reflection questions from different influencers and thought leaders that I follow. One idea I got from Mel Robbins, and it's a simple idea, to just look back over your camera roll to help jog your memory and remember the important moments of the year that had just passed. The other questions I got from podcaster and author Laura Tremaine from her Substack, they were right there for anyone to borrow, to journal about. And I took these questions and I put them in my own words and adjusted them into questions that I felt like would fit my family, that might resonate with them and where they are in their life a little more. So I gathered these questions. I'll take a moment to tell you what they are. So the first thing I had them do was review and reflect on 2025. And that's where they went through their camera roll and spent some time listing out the moments that stood out for them in the year. And then the other questions were, if you had to name one thing you learned this year about yourself or life, what would it be? And feel free, if you want to write these down, you can pause the podcast and write them down as I read them. So question 1, if you had to name one thing you learned this year about yourself or life, what would it be? Who had a real impact on you this year? A person, a conversation, or a moment that stuck with you? What are you most proud of from this year? Especially something that might not look impressive to other people, but mattered to you. What do you really love or appreciate about your life right now? And finally, is there anything you'd like to do differently next year, or something that feels ready for a change? And then the final section was to simply list out their intentions for 2026. And the prompt for that was, what do you want to put more time or energy into this year? Something that feels important or lights you up. It can be one thing or more than one thing. So I typed out these questions and I printed them out so everyone had their own reflection packet. I created an agenda, which did make them laugh a little bit, but it was my way of showing that this was something that was organized, because I knew that it needed some structure for them to take it seriously, but also so they would understand that this isn't going to last all day. If there was no structure to it, I felt like they might check out and not be as inclined to really participate. That there was a clear beginning and an end and a loose timeline of what we were going to be doing. And also, I told you there was food. So the other thing I did was I lit some candles. I invited everyone into the living room rather than, like, say, sitting at the dining room table. I wanted everyone to feel comfortable. I turned on the YouTube channel, not the Yule log, but one of the channels that was a Christmassy scene where it was like this open air porch with a Christmas tree, and you could see the snow out in the distance, and there's like jazz music playing. So it was a whole vibe. So when my kids came down the stairs, my husband, he was on board. And I think he just understood that he needed to take this seriously, to model that, okay, we're doing what mom wants to do. But they were a little stiff, awkward, and trying not to laugh. And so I broke the ice by saying, hey, I know this feels kind of awkward. It feels a little awkward to me too. I said, honestly, I'm kind of nervous for some reason. Like my hands were shaking. I said, but this feels really important. I feel like we live really busy lives. And I just think it's important to take a moment to look back on this year before we just run right into the next one, and maybe give you a chance to think about what you want out of this year. And for some reason, that just seemed to be all it took to break the ice, and everyone nodded, and, we just got started. I asked them to handwrite their answers, and of course, they could use their phone to look through their camera roll. But after that, just put their phones away. And those were just the things I did to create some structure. But I also knew I couldn't control the outcome. I really couldn't control how much they participated, what they got out of it. And I just had to sort of let that unfold. And I was really surprised. I was surprised at how, well, let me back up. I had told them that they could share their answers, that we could go around and everyone have an opportunity to share their answers, but they did not have to read aloud or tell any of us anything they wrote down. That if they needed whatever they were processing or reflecting to be private, that was fine too. So that is what surprised me. I was actually surprised at the amount of time they spent just writing those important moments from the year, and then taking the time to answer the questions. And we did those one by one, the deeper reflection questions, and everyone had a chance to share what they said. And I was surprised by how vulnerable everyone seemed, how open they were, how it appeared to be helpful to be processing. And the other thing was how, when one person was speaking, everyone was truly listening. I may have set the stage, but they collectively helped make that be a safe space to share and be vulnerable and listen. The thing I really took note of was how much time was spent on the reflection. How much time was spent processing the year we had just lived. And although we did spend some time at the end talking about our intentions for 2026, that really did not take up a lot of real estate, because by the time we got to that point, it seemed like everything people listed and things they said they wanted for 2026 was in the context of everything they had just reflected on. And even as I got farther and farther away from the new year, it still felt relevant as I returned to this space to talk about the importance of looking back before moving forward. And it's definitely not so we can look back on the past and stay stuck there and stay in those stories of the past. It really is about looking back to create those doorways that help you move forward. You cannot trust yourself if you don't understand yourself. So if you don't pause every now and then and look back on your previous season or a previous year or any period of time and take note of what drained you, what energized you, where were those moments where you look back and you knew you had a feeling about something, and maybe you didn't listen to it. And now you can see that you ignored your own wisdom or instinct or inner knowing. Or maybe there were times that you absolutely did trust yourself. When you look back, you can pinpoint those moments where you felt or heard your inner voice, your inner wisdom, God, whatever is inside of you that feels true. And you can look back and see when you listened to that and when you pushed it down. And that's important information for moving forward. It's also helpful to look back because you begin to see that true transformation happens in a series of small moments. We often put a lot of emphasis on the big moment or the final moment, and it makes us believe that transformation or change or any important direction you want to go in is something that happens quickly, it happens overnight, and that's just not true. It's a series of things. But when you look back, you can see the progress that you've made. You really can take an inventory of how far you've already come. Looking back also helps you break the cycles of repeating old patterns. If you don't take time to look back and reflect on the life you just lived, you may set goals that really aren't aligned with what you truly want. You may find yourself repeating old patterns without ever really checking in to see if those patterns are working for you or if they're aligned at all. Here's something that may feel difficult to explain, but maybe you'll get what I mean. Looking back actually helps you live a more present and engaged life. When you look back, it helps you remember things that you may have forgotten because life is so busy and one season rolls into the next. So you're actually pausing to look back to reinforce some things that happened. So now they truly do live in your memory and those experiences become more integrated in your daily life. And the more you practice that, I have found that it helps me be more present in my daily life because I become more aware of those moments in real time. I'm like everyone else. I kind of can be on autopilot or I can be in one situation, but I can be a million miles away in my mind. But the more I practice this, the more I kind of snap out of it and consciously re-engage with the moment that I'm currently in. And finally, and this is connected to learning to trust yourself and listen to yourself and make more authentic, aligned choices. But looking back helps you build confidence and courage because you can look back and see the brave things you did. You can say, oh, I lived that. I survived that. I was afraid to do that, but I did it anyway. I didn't think I was going to be capable of getting through that, but I did. And the great thing is you can do this anytime. You can do this anytime you are seeking clarity or a sense of direction, simply by pausing and asking yourself questions like, what did this last season teach me? When did I feel most like myself? What drained me? What deserves to be acknowledged before I move on? So that's all I have for you this week. I am so glad to be back. If you enjoyed this episode and you haven't already, I invite you to subscribe to my weekly newsletter, Hello Friday. It's one way to make sure you never miss a podcast episode, but Hello Friday is my personal note to the people in my community every week where I share a small story or takeaway, a weekly dose of inspiration and encouragement delivered right to your inbox. You can find the sign up for Hello Friday at my website, angiemazel.com. If you're a regular podcast listener, I would love for you to subscribe to More Like You with Angie Mazel. Please leave a review. The other thing you can do that's kind of fun, you can take a screenshot of the episode, share it on social media, share it in your Instagram stories, and tag me at Angie Mazel. And that is a way to share the podcast with other people and let me know that you're listening. I love to see those things. Once again, thanks for listening to More Like You. I am Angie Mazel, and I will see you back here next week.